Crimson Rain by Vanessa Finity. The heavens shed crimson rain. Now is the time for pain to reign. Our thirst for blood is near complete. All we hear is nature's beat. What we began, the mother is finishing. In her eyes, we are diminishing.
They say the time will come for the darkened sky to violate our earth with her tears of blood. The legends foretell of a bloodthirsty race being born from these tears. Mother Nature's punishment for our evil deeds. They say that day will come when mankind's thirst for the blood of his own consumes him. They say that day is near.
It was just past midnight when the first drops of a light rain began to fall. The only unusual thing about it was the color, crimson. There weren't many people awake at that hour. Most were tucked up snug and warm in their beds, oblivious to the terrors that were about to befall the human race. Those of us who were outdoors raised our faces to the heavens, catching droplets on our cold flesh. Some inner voice warned a few not to get wet. Those who heeded that voice were left untouched. The rest of us changed. I remember it like it was just last night, the events forever imprinted upon my mind. First, the wonder on my friends' faces. Second, the disgust and horror as the first drops touched their lips and they tasted Mother Nature's tears. Then, only the fear. I recall watching them run for cover, wiping their faces and any other parts of their bodies that the rain had touched, a feverish hope in their eyes that they had somehow not been contaminated. I ignored my instinct to stay dry, the same instinct that insisted that wiping the blood from my cheeks would not help me. It was too late. It was at that point I first remembered the legend my grandmother used to tell me. I remember shivering, not from cold, for it was warm that night, but from fear. Somehow, I just knew my grandmother's stories had not been mere stories. Now, almost 300 years later, I have a decision to make. It's not an easy one, but I have no choice. Before I go on, I feel the need to share the events that have transpired in between the falling of the blood rain and today, here and now. If you are a vampire, as those whom the rain fell upon have since been dubbed, you already know what I'm about to say. If you are human, the stories you have heard will have varied greatly, and you will, no doubt, be unsure as to the true origins of my species. My species. Even after almost 3 centuries, I cannot get used to no longer being human. Why were we dubbed vampires? I'm not entirely certain, to be honest, although I know the modern meaning is a being seduced by bloodlust, which is a pretty apt description. Wait, I digress. The rain. The drops that fell to earth seemed to pool on the surface without sinking into the soil. If the rain had lasted any longer than the few minutes it did, we may have had another flood of biblical proportions on our hands. Drops falling on animals, other than the human ones, rolled off their coats, leaving them completely dry. Those drops that made contact with human flesh, however, seemed to seep into our pores, leaving us internally drenched in blood. I swear that when the first drops made their way into my flesh, I could feel them finding their way into my bloodstream, tainting me, changing me. It burnt from the inside out, and while thoughts of spontaneous combustion filled my mind, I contemplated suicide as an alternative to finding out what was in store for me. In hindsight, that would not have been such a bad idea. Somehow, in those eternal few minutes of soft rain, someone somewhere thought to catch a sample. It took our scientists less than a day to discover that those of us who had tasted the rain were correct. It was indeed human blood. Talk of alien invasion and the wrath of God, amongst other things, ran rife through the whole world. The blood rain did not only fall on one continent, you see. It was unleashed upon mankind as a whole. I'm still unsure from where my grandmother's legend stemmed, but she was right. She was not the only one spreading the tale either. Those who called themselves witches and wizards, priests and priestesses all around the world also told that story to their children, grandchildren, and whoever would listen. Sadly, those are the very people whom we mocked and took for fools. I don't remember my grandmother very well, but others recall her being a powerful woman in tune with nature. We didn't realize it then, but that night We began to pay the price for all the murder, hatred, and pain we had been inflicting upon each other for so very long. To put it bluntly, we pissed Mother Nature off. She has a mean streak previously not shown to humankind, except, I suspect, in the case of the biblical Great Flood and the many other global cataclysms our planet has endured. She was patient with us for too long, and finally lost her temper when her words of warning were ignored. Of those of us who were infected by the rain, some handed themselves in at the request of the various world governments, while others, like me, remained silent about having been outside, insisting that we were asleep in bed at the time. Our friends and family, who were afraid of the unknown, turned many of us liars in. Others got away with our lies and remained free. If you ask me, too many of us remained free, but that was the Mother's intention, I think. Today I sit here on my rock, my place of peace where I come to think. From this tranquil place, I have a view of the town and the surrounding valleys. When I come here, I feel somewhat separated from all living creatures. Except the birds, of course. Those usually sit close to me, keeping me company. I often wonder if they realize they could easily be my next meal. I've never taken one, though. My rock juts out from the mountain face, a small slab on which there's only space for one man to sit. A man. Or a bloodsucker. As I ponder the choices I have before me, I sit hunched with my arms resting on my knees, which are pulled towards my body as I sit on the edge of the ledge, tempting mortality. My arms are straight, hands hanging over my knees. I've never been able to keep my emotions from my face, so I know I have a strangely serene expression. Strange, considering the choices before me now. I'm thinking back to when I first saw Mother Nature in human form. I can't be certain, but I think she's been watching me ever since, sneaking glimpses into my life and allowing me to spot her. Why? The ultimate question, why did she allow me to walk away that first time? I know she did not mean to be seen that day. I could ruin her plans. It would be in my best interest to do so. Yet she allowed me to walk away with my immortality intact. Allowed me to be a danger to what she had planned for all of us, humans and vampires alike. In the end, our fates will not diverge. Indeed, no matter which decision I make today, our fates are intertwined. The light and the dark, humans and vampires, shall once again come together as one. I was walking through the forest just before twilight that night and stopped to listen to the howl of a wolf. That was when I spotted her. If the wolf had not cried out to its mate just then, I would have missed this opportunity to make things right. A part of me believes it was, in fact, intentional. Mother Nature placing one last chance for humanity in the hands of a vampire. I am not happy with this decision that has been forced upon my shoulders, but bear it I must. Doing nothing is not an option, as that would be a decision in itself, one I'm not sure I'm ready or willing to make. My mind is wandering again. Please, bear with me. This is not an easy thing for me to do. I've always been one who kept to himself, one who was happiest with his own company. It's been even harder on me since I was changed. The night I saw Mother Nature in human form, I was walking to clear my head, trying to rid myself of some of the bloodlust that forces my body to hunger. I knew I would be compelled to feast eventually, but I always try to put that off for as long as I can. I will starve myself for weeks before indulging in the only thing that can keep me alive: human blood. I often force myself to drink the blood of wild animals instead, as disgusting as the taste is. Animal blood delays the hunger and decay of my flesh, but always, if I deprive myself of human blood, the decay creeps up on me. It was nearing twilight that evening, the sky a layered painting of reds and oranges, when the wolf howled. I stopped in my tracks, seeking its source. It sounded close by, and I was hungry. The thought of wolf blood did not appeal to me at all, as I've already mentioned, but I was not ready to kill another human that night. Standing there silently, a tree amongst trees, I heard the first soft whispers of a beautiful feminine voice. Something in the voice struck me as different, and, to be honest, my first inclination was to feast on its owner. Such a sweet voice could only come from equally sweet flesh. That's something I'm ashamed of, but it's what I've become. I cannot help it. I only had to walk a short distance off the path to find her. Kneeling before a gray wolf, one hand on its back in an almost consoling manner, she murmured to it. I had the strange idea that it was her confidant, that it was the wolf that had to carry the burden of knowledge of what she had planned for humanity. I had never in my wildest dreams expected Mother Nature to need a confidant, a listening ear. Surely that need equaled weakness, vulnerability, uncertainty? I remained silent, listening, too stunned to make myself known. After a while, I can't be certain the time frame, she rose to her feet, her golden dress swishing against her slender legs. She smiled and looked up, directly into my eyes, and it seemed as if she had known all along that I was standing there. Again, I can't help but wonder if she had intended for the wolf to draw me there. I blinked and she was gone, leaving the wolf sitting staring at me. It bared its teeth and raised its hackles, almost as if it knew it could be my next meal. I thought it would attack, but then it turned and stalked away. The question burns. Did Mother Nature intend for me to have this decision weighing on my shoulders? Surely if she was testing the human race one last time, giving us one last chance to prove we are capable of compassion towards each other, she would not have chosen a vampire to make that choice. You must have noticed my use of the word us. Strange, but after all this time, I still consider myself human. I have always doubted I could be anything special, yet the choice remains.